everybody out there. My name is Didi Verg, and I'm your host today for Let's Talk Hypnosis, brought to you by Hypnothoughts Live 2018. And today it is my very special pleasure to introduce my guest, Timothy Trujillo. So welcome to the show, Timothy.
Thank you, Didi. Pleasure to be here with you.
And it's a pleasure to have you. So everybody, let me tell you a little bit about Timothy. Timothy has integrated hypnotherapy, Reiki, acupuncture, and aromatherapy into a powerful healing system. He's an expert in pain relief, trauma recovery, and immune disorder management. Timothy's passions for using hypnosis to reduce suffering has carried his campaign from community agencies to medical centers, as well as to the United Nations, including disaster zones. Through his First Medicines organization, Timothy has helped to deliver his unique system that spans from working with AIDS-impacted populations in Los Angeles to having led outreach projects in Guatemala, India, New Orleans, and Cairo for traumatic distress and survivors of tsunami, hurricane, and civil war. He has chronicled in his work in his book called Tsunami Effect. Now, at this year's Hypnothoughts, Timothy is going to be teaching two shorter workshops, one 2-hour and a 4-hour workshop, entitled The Ultimate Clinical Induction and Hands-on Hypnosis, as well as a one-day pre-conference workshop in Transpersonal Hypnotherapy. So, Timothy, wow.
Yes.
It sounds like you have had a very busy career as a hypnotist. So, how did you first find yourself getting into the hypnosis field?
I first got into hypnosis. I had a back injury. I was a performing artist for most of my life, and about 25 years ago, I suffered a back injury and needed to change careers. I was going to go into the practice of acupuncture at the time, and during an acupuncture treatment, I had this wonderful, mystical, inner body traveling healing experience. And not long after that, I found a full-page ad for the Hypnotism Training Institute of Los Angeles, and I realized that that was the tool that I could use to help take people through the same process and same powerful healing experience that I had. So that's what I did, and I've been taking those journeys ever since.
Okay, so tell us about how you ended up integrating acupuncture and Reiki and this sort of holistic approach into hypnosis.
Well, curiously, again, my experience was a kind of, what do they call it, fantastic voyage or inner space where I was traveling down to the site of the injury within my body and communicating to the muscles and the nerves there, reassuring them and supporting their healing. I had plenty of experience with trance-mediated methods in my workshopping for performance in the past. But when I realized that hypnosis, could empower a person to have that experience, then I trained in that method. I immediately began studying the science of psychoneuroimmunology, mind-body interactions. This is years before we knew about, what we can now call psychoepigenetics, the way our mind actually influences the behavior of our genes, and so many other biological processes. So that after I studied hypnosis, it seemed the next appropriate thing was to use touch, even going back to kind of mesmeric methods, energetic methods, to use external influence in addition to internal guided processes. And so eventually I went back and I trained in Reiki, and I integrated that into the hands-on hypnosis system. Then later I studied acupuncture to know actual point applications. And curiously enough, Didi, what I realized after 20 years of this journey was that the reason that I had that initial experience was because the acupuncturist had actually stimulated points on my body that had called my mind's attention to that area to deliver some kind of medicine. And it just happened to engage my consciousness in a way. So now I use that all in an integrated system. When I do an acupuncture treatment, I inform people of what the needles are doing. I will always do a guided process and a kind of hypnotic guide at the beginning of their treatment so that they have the same kind of fully integrated mind-body healing experience.
It sounds really, really amazing. So how did you end up getting into things like the United Nations and bringing your First Medicines organization into these disaster zones and such?
Well, I started, of course, working. I ran workshops in Los Angeles for 5 years at AIDS Project Los Angeles and working with AIDS Healthcare Foundation to provide psychosocial support for the HIV affected population. That began helping people with palliative care at the end of life to help them be a little bit more coherent with less pain meds at the end of life in order to support their passing and reduce the impact of their loved ones during their passing. Over time, I learned how these methods could support a person's health and well-being, and developed a systematic protocol to support what was supported in the medical literature to resolve stress dynamics, sleep, chronic pain, etc. The success of that eventually led me to do a hospital pilot project helping people with nerve pain from spinal cord injury. One of the issues that we had really demonstrated effective support for in HIV management was peripheral neuropathy, nerve pain in the extremities. And so we carried that into a research project at Northridge Medical Center in Los Angeles to help people with full body neuropathies. And it just happened that a person who was a participant in that study ran a program at the United Nations. When she found out what I was doing with HIV positive populations, she invited me to come speak about that program at the UN. When I made that address, because the objective was to take these tools to the developing world, I was told by somebody at UNAIDS that I needed to do a pilot project and return to the UN with the results of the pilot project. And it was the efforts to do that pilot project that first led me to Guatemala, where I found not only the need to help adults and children with HIV, but also found people who were still affected by the trauma of the enduring civil war there. Right. And through that work, eventually that led me to the tsunami zone and the hurricane zone, and the work kind of shifted from immune support area into general disaster recovery and trauma recovery, which is a primary component of that health model as well. But we find now, one of the main things that I do as First Medicines is we provide through firstmedicines.org, our site, a brief intervention called the 5-Minute Miracle that allows people, it was developed from working in these disaster zones, allows people to discharge and recharge in a very short period of time. And then I go out and do this treatment, and all of the resources are there on the site. And again, it's free to show how the treatment is done using both an audio and a hands-on approach at the same time, which again has a very profound mind-body resolution and integration effect.
It sounds amazing, absolutely amazing. So let's talk about what you're going to be teaching everybody at this year's Hypnothoughts. So what is the ultimate clinical induction all about?
Well, that's a little bit of a teaser. The last time I was at Hypnothoughts 2 years ago, I did a workshop, Inductions, because I just wanted to celebrate the practice of induction. And out of that workshop, the key question that the individuals first had is, how do I choose the induction? How do I know what's the best induction to use with the client? And so now I've decided then to really approach that idea. What is the ultimate induction? And we might think, oh, it would be this induction or that induction. Well, the ultimate, I'll go ahead and spill the beans. The ultimate clinical induction is the one that is most appropriate for that client at that time. And then the trick is, how do we determine that? And how do we carry with us a full retinue of different induction methods that then we can select from what we think is the most appropriate for that individual. So, many of the induction itself can be a whole pattern for their cycle of resolution. So I always choose inductions that are not only beneficial for them at the time, but also very instructive for their experience so that they can apply that knowing into other areas of their life.
Yeah, I always say with people, like, people are like snowflakes. Each one is so individual that
So true.
you have to begin to read them and know, okay, this person's really analytical. What kind of induction do I do for that? So that's great that you're going to be helping both new and seasoned hypnotists choose the right induction. Because
Yes.
when you start out in hypnosis, everybody knows it's very daunting. It's scary. It's like you worry, will they go into trance or not? And sometimes you throw everything you got at them, and it doesn't look like they're in trance, but even though they probably are, because everybody expresses it differently. It's really scary out there for the new hypnotist. So I highly recommend that any new hypnotist go to Timothy's course. So now let's talk about, how does hands-on hypnosis differ from traditional hypnosis? That's your second workshop, which is a 4-hour.
Yeah, so the hands-on method really is what's become very popular in the field, is the integration of Reiki and hypnosis. They're a natural pair.
Sure.
And, to be clear, Reiki has so many echoes of the original mesmerism and animal magnetism that is itself a kind of physical hypnosis or energetic hypnosis. And so what I've done is, just over the years, I've developed such a systematic approach to that, and the combination, the understanding of the point references or point indications from an acupuncture perspective, and how we bring that intention toward the effect that we're working toward with the client. And these are methods that are not only good for people who are going through the healing and recovery, but also, what's very, very common in our society is anxiety and stress-related conditions. And so the physical intervention, the classic use of touch in hypnosis is to anchor suggestion or to anchor idea. That when we are delivering a verbal suggestion, at the same time connecting that verbal suggestion to the body physically somehow to help integrate that information. And so the hands-on hypnosis method really takes that fundamental and gives it a very broad platform and some specific application.
Well, I can tell people my experience with acupuncture. I was very, very ill for a period of 10 years, and acupuncture was the only thing that got me through. And what it seems to do is, it's a natural trance inducer. It would put my body into such a state of balance and calm that it was, and I couldn't eat for 2.5 years, so it was the only time I ever felt some kind of appetite. So I can't even begin to imagine how powerful applying both of those are. It must be truly miraculous. And you call it something different. You call it magic. So tell us a little bit about magic.
Well, the magic, magic is the art of creating change. And what I often refer to regarding magic, and there's stage magic, which is classically was called juggling, prestidigitation, and this is illusion. Now, in this kind of magic, entertainment magic, we have 3 primary tricks. We have the pull the rabbit from a hat, which is called a production. We have the lady vanishes, which is a disappearance. And then we have the third trick, which is we put the lady in the cabinet, we spin the cabinet, we open the cabinet doors, and the rabbit is there. So this is both a disappearance and a production at the same time. That's called a transformation. So everything then in the work that we do hypnotically, and hypnosis does fit into the long-standing category of spiritual magic or energetic magic. Everything is about bringing something into our lives, making something disappear from our lives, or transforming something in our lives. So everything can be kind of couched in these 3 approaches to the magic trick. But then we can take it from there into, well, how do we the terms are manifestation, attraction, etc. How do we bring from the unseen world into the seen material world? And that's where the true magic of consciousness and the tool of hypnosis, which is a trance-mediated method. The trance allows us to move from the physical material existence into the immaterial etheric existence and to work between those 2 realms. And so that's why, people often say, it's reported, oh, is this work rather shamanic? Yes, it is the classic same tool. Our work as hypnotists is like lodge medicine. It is like the very first medicines, to work between the seen and unseen world, to carry the person through their dreaming existence into their waking existence, and to, with that, help them with bringing what things they need to bring forth, resolving what things they need to resolve, and creating the change that they seek in their lives.
Excellent, excellent. So now give us a little rundown for what is transpersonal hypnotherapy and how does it perhaps different, again, from traditional hypnotherapy?
The transpersonal methods in themselves are all about that which is beyond ourselves. And so hypnosis is itself a transpersonal method. It allows us to experience ourselves beyond our fixation of how we look in the mirror today, how we feel that the world sees us, etc. It allows us to connect with other aspects or facets of ourselves. And so classically in hypnosis, then transpersonal methods that we may involve in that, taking it kind of one step further. What's most common in hypnotic work is the past life regression, where we connect to another perceived existence and sometimes overlay that, so that a person says, well, maybe in this other previous lifetime, whether it's real that I lived that lifetime or whether I'm experiencing that as a part of my conscious profile, it is now a part of my identity. And we can use a variety of these methods with our clients to help them, in the classic terms of the work, we would refer to it as modeling, that we're creating modeling as a kind of parts therapy. But one step beyond that is the experiential aspect of it. So in the transpersonal work that I do, one of the processes that I thoroughly enjoy for every application is animal work, and that definitely gets into shamanic kinds of methods, to allow a person to become a different form, another animal form, and to have the experience of that animal, and then to connect with the strengths and qualities of that animal, and again incorporate that into their own life. I teach also and utilize a method called artificial reincarnation to, in the trance, have a person have the experience of a historic individual or somebody that, again, it's all about connecting to qualities or aspects. And some of these get into our archetypes of personas. Some of them get into archetypes of experiences, the journey, the ascension, etc. So all of these aspects that are beyond ourselves, that then we can incorporate to become a part of ourselves, ultimately create greater self-expansion and self-awareness.
Well, thank you so much, Timothy. Thank you for bringing all this magic to us. And it's going to be a pleasure to see you at Hypnothoughts. So everybody, once again, Timothy is offering 2 short workshops, 1 2-hour, 1 4-hour. And he's also got a 1 pre-day conference workshop called Transpersonal Hypnotherapy. And of course, you can register by going to htlive.net, everyone. So thank you so much for being with us, Timothy, and we will see you at Hypnothoughts.
All right, shall I play us out with a song?
Please do.
All right, we'll see you in Vegas.
Thank you
Have a great day.
much, Timothy. You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye.